Well, what about legacy systems? I know you're kind of touching upon this in regards to constantly revisiting, but there's plenty of organizations out there that are highly profitable. They look like the darling of for the bankers. They want to be shopped, but when you take a deeper dive, you realize that they're sitting on old legacy tech, old legacy CRMs, old legacy accounting systems. How do they start to wrap their head on like the hierarchy of importance? Where would you start to get them transformed digitally?
I would personally focus on what systems could lead to more revenues and profits. So if say like a legacy CRM system, if a newer CRM system had maybe some AI aspect to it that scored leads and allowed you to get more customers or convert more prospects into revenue, then I would do that type of system. A system that can bring in immediate profit and loss benefits. The other systems, let's say it's an HR system that is archaic, but it sort of does the job, then that would be a low, important, but a low priority. Also possibly thinking about potential acquisition, people who are going to acquire you, are they going to have systems that you would then take on? So maybe those systems are not as important, because when you get acquired, you're gonna have to you're gonna have to adhere to the systems of the parent company. So those are things to keep in mind when you're looking at upgrading legacy systems.
Is there a dark side to systems where maybe you have experience with this here, where you jump in too quickly to a piece of software and maybe try to onboard too quickly with something? Is there any kind of landmines when it comes to this?
Sure, I think that there is no replication for a human touch, human experience, and I think maybe people have tried to automate too much, and you could tell you're getting automated responses from people versus a human reaching out, calling. We're losing those touch points, which I think is negatively affecting the human experience, for sure.
I went to the grocery store the other day, and it was all self-checkout.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, like I didn't know I worked here. It feels that way sometimes.
Yes.
So the dark side, we really just want to make sure that business owners are prepared to hit the market. And yes, we talk about valuation from an EBITDA standpoint. We talk about valuation from intellectual property. I love what you're saying about creating your own IP. I feel like business owners sometimes get a little nervous about creating their own IP, creating their own software, creating their own tech, because sometimes they're just not tech-minded or tech-driven. They're just good at building widgets or delivering a service, and that's it. So if someone feels like they do have a good idea to create their own internal systems, how do they approach that without spending too much money or having the scope be a runaway train?
There are marketplaces like Upwork where you can find contractors. So yes, if you're a business owner and you say, hey, it would be great if we were able to systemize this, have a technology that did this, usually those technologies are great technologies that you could probably not only use yourself, possibly even sell it to someone else on a licensing basis, but that's usually not their expertise on how to build that. Unfortunately, software costs have gone down dramatically, and what cost $1 million 5 years ago could possibly be done for $25,000 today. And there are contractors on places like Upwork throughout the world, so you can get great inexpensive labor from thousands of miles away that speak English perfectly, that can get the job done. And so the only advice I would give is make sure you work with people that have tons of projects under their belt and have a 5-star rating, and ideally be able to say, hey, let's start by only completing a small portion of the technology first to make sure that the person's going to work out. But yeah, I think there's marketplaces today to create technology that just didn't exist even 10 years ago.
What about data? So let's talk about data a little bit, because I feel like data is maybe the cousin of this conversation, where we can create really good software systems with CRMs and getting data. So how does data correlate to valuation and driving the value up?
We're very big on metrics and KPIs, key performance indicators, and I think most successful companies that sell for the highest valuations are the same. That they're looking at their metrics because it's a very systematic way to run a business. You say, what is our revenue, per prospect, revenue per employee? What is our conversion rates on new prospects, et cetera? What is our revenue per client? And so having those metrics, out there, so A, you need the data, and B, being able to constantly look at your metrics makes you a more professional organization. And it allows you to hire better because people that come into roles, they have very clear expectations. My expectation is based on my success on these metrics. And you can't improve what you can't measure in most cases. And so now that you have data and you're measuring things, people can improve performance. So generally your revenue goes up, your profits go up, and your business is more systematized. So all things that take your valuation higher and higher.